But the same thing can be said for the political parties. I am convinced this game has been going on for a long time. I've never felt more set up in my life than I do right now. I feel like we've been duped. This game has been coming for a long time and none of us saw it coming. We all just went, everything's going to be fine, it's going to be great. Oh no, I got to get my guy in. No, you got to get my guy in. It's been a game. So the American people have to play a different game. Does anybody here think that these problems are going to be solved in Washington? Nobody. Then what are we doing standing around waiting for them to solve it? It's a fundamental transformation of our system. It's a fundamental transformation of our country. Then we have to fundamentally transform. How many of us were out of control spenders? At some point in our life recent, how many of us have spent too much? And probably just got into debt, okay? Okay, that's great. Now what are you going to do about it, Bill?
Cut expenses.
Yes.
That's
Learn from our lesson and stop playing the same game. How many of us know they're going to bail out the mortgages now? Not the mortgage industry, but anybody's house that is underwater. And President Obama said today, it's not going to cost anybody, the taxpayers a dime, because we're just going to use TARP money. Oh, well, that's free money. Does anybody think that's going to work? Stop doing the same thing. I think, and what I'm laying out tomorrow, and I'll be laying out in the coming weeks on the TV show and radio, is, again, faith, hope, and charity. Each one of us have to fundamentally change ourselves and not be dependent on anyone else. Because when we are, you want to know when they're spooked? When we don't need them. When we don't need them. When we say, whatever, you keep going on your little magic box over there yelling at each other every day on TV. You go ahead and do that. I don't really give a flying crap. How much production time do we lose in this country? We lose hours and hours and hours yelling at each other. For what? For what? We need to fundamentally transform ourselves and spit ourselves out of the system. And when we do, others will come rushing to us because our lives will be stable. Everybody right now, good portion of this country, let me ask you this question. How many are fearful of the future of this country right now? Fearful. How many believe that's different than concerned? I've never feared the future of America. Really. Until really this week. Because I start to see the things that I've been saying are happening. That's different. That's what we need to concentrate on. Get yourself out of the system. Back in just a second. Hello, America. We're back in the UCF arena where tomorrow I'm doing an event with 8,000 people. I think there's a few hundred tickets available still. But we're going to be talking about what does it take to revive America. And we're sitting here with, about 40 people from around Florida now that we're just discussing what's happened this week, where we're headed. And we've been on this topic here for a few minutes of the system has to change. The system has been gamed. So now, what do we do? What do we do from here? And Jim, you were talking in the break.
Well, my question basically is, if you opt out of the system and you move away from the parties, what is happening is I'm the state president of Ronald Reagan Republican Assemblies, which is the conservative Republicans in the state. And our Republican Party became fiscally irresponsible during the Bush years, no question. We abandoned our fiscal and social principles. So conservative Republicans moved out of the Republican Party and became independent. Reagan Democrats have been left behind in the Democratic Party, and as we've seen in the recent weeks, conservatives in the Democratic Party are lost. they really don't have a home. So if we opt out of the parties instead of trying to build one party back into the Conservative Party, what other alternative is there?
It's a great question, because this is not what I'm suggesting. I'm not suggesting anything about parties. I'm not suggesting leaving or joining. You have to still be in the system. You still have to go out and vote. Otherwise, you think this is bad. Wait until you see what you get. What I'm saying is that we as individuals change and unite. Change and unite. They're going to have to come to us. You know, I've been talking to some religious leaders this week, and I said to them, the Christian coalition needs to come back, but not as a political force. Not as we're going to support this candidate and we're going to go to Washington and we're going to talk to these people. When you get churches of all faiths together, and they say, these are the principles that we stand for, and there are millions of us, they'll come to us.
They have to vote in the primaries. If they don't vote in the primaries,
I'm not saying, no, Jim, I am not suggesting leave your party. I'm not suggesting that. I'm not suggesting don't go out and vote. I'm not saying be a Democrat or be a Republican. You change yourself, and out of that group will come people. We need good people with values, not politicians. We need good people with values. You got a block here of 2-3 million people. Somebody's coming out of there, and it might be a Democrat, it might be a Republican. They might be all Republicans, all Democrats. It doesn't matter. Are they good people? Then we're together. We have to change who we are. Does that make sense, Dave?
I think that what we've done is we've abdicated our responsibility as neighbors to the federal government, to even state agencies, and we've outsourced everything to Washington. And it's time to take it home and just take care of each other again.
I mean, I know this sounds bad, and here's a clip that'll be run forever on, you know, calling me violent, but when did get off my land lose its meaning? When did get off my land, when did we stop saying that? Get off my land. It's my land. I don't want you here. I don't want you here. This is my land. And the neighbor is coming next and saying, yeah, damn right. I don't necessarily agree with him on a lot of stuff, but that's his land and this is my land. That's what we need to get back. Not in a violent way, just in a, what the hell are you even doing here? Who are you? Exactly right. The Constitution. The Constitution.
Glenn,
yes,
we need to remember that we're the ones that hired these people to work for us in Washington. So we've got to fundamentally change how we go about hiring these people. And one of the things we have to do is realize that the first thing we do is we're teaching them to be crack addicts before they ever get elected, because they have no limits on what they can spend in order to get the job. So the first thing I think we need to do is put limits of maybe $1 per voter that they can spend on their election, and it balances the field.
Here's a limit. Term limits.
Yeah, you got that right.
Term limits. Absolutely. It's good enough for the president. It's not good enough for them. Term limits is the limit that we need to find.
Absolutely, but we've got to get the people. We've got a lot of brilliant people out there that have great ideas that don't have enough of the right friends, and we've got to make the playing field to where they can get their voice heard, and maybe we can hire better employees through that process.
I will tell you this. I have been kind of the fish out of water my whole career. I've been the guy who was on the air on talk radio that was funny, and everybody's like, well, you know, you gotta, and I talked about different things in spirituality. No, you gotta talk about politics, and I did my thing. I've been the fish out of water over at CNN. I mean, you want to talk about a fish? I mean, I was in the middle of the desert over there. Here I'm a fish out of water too, because I don't really talk. I don't care about the parties, and people don't understand that in America. They just don't understand that. It's good to be a fish out of water. You don't have to necessarily have friends. Don't do yourself a favor. Don't make as many enemies as I have made myself, but you don't necessarily have to have a lot of friends. And let me rephrase that. Don't ever lose your soul for a favor. When you go down, I was doing an interview today with somebody, and they said, what Aaron is saying, wrap it up. I'll be back with the rest of that story. It's a good one. Hang on just a second.